right-wingers aren't even trying to hide their calls for violence. In fact, recently, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis used a statement about Anthony Fauci to promote violence toward him. Keep in mind, Fauci just announced he's retiring. So the fact that they're still turning COVID into a culture war rallying cry blows the mind. But nonetheless, here's what Ron DeSantis said during a Florida GOP rally.
You have people like Fauci saying that his lockdowns didn't cause any permanent damage to any young kids. I got news for you, it did, and we are gonna reap those rewards across the whole country for years and years and years because they treated kids so poorly. And I'm just sick of seeing him. I know he says he's gonna retire. Someone needs to grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac.
Chuck him across the Potomac. Okay, great. The one thing that I really noticed from that video, Cenk, is how much Ron DeSantis is practicing his Trump impression, which makes me think he really is serious about running in 2024. Because while he does seem to be gaining traction among Republican voters, including individuals who previously said they would rather vote for Trump over anyone else, fact of the matter is, up on that debate stage, the environment is very different. And if Trump is running against you in the Republican primary, you have to keep in mind that he knows how to throw those jabs. So I just feel like that video was a pretty clear example of Ron DeSantis like beefing up his violent rhetoric to kind of compete with Trump in the future.
Yeah, so I took two things away from that video. First of all, yeah, there's two different standards, right? One for the right wing and one for the left wing. Was that violent rhetoric? Yeah, of course. If the left had said it, we'd be in a lot of trouble. Like, I imagine if I said, somebody should take that Ron DeSantis and throw him in a goddamn river. Well, wait, that's terrible, right? But what do the right wing say? Oh, he's kidding. He called him a little elf and he said over the river, right? Now, if there was no context of right-wing political violence, I might even agree. I might go, well, come on, it's not, there's nobody doing any political violence. He's called him an elf, get over it, right? But wait a minute, there is nonstop right-wing political violence in the country. Every time a right-wing politician says something, somebody goes to Washington, runs into a barricade, blows themselves up, comes in with a truck full of bombs, plants bombs at the RNC, the DNC, tries to kidnap the governor of Michigan, and on and on and on. And in this era and Trump constantly saying, oh, you better not raid Mar-a-Lago, or otherwise the pressure is building, and all this talk of civil war. Then in that context, a guy who they've drummed up all this hatred towards, and then he tells people to throw him over a river, somebody might take him up on it. Right. But there'll never be accountability for the right wing. Never, okay? So the second thing is what Anna mentioned. Look, Ron DeSantis is generally a pretty normal, smarmy politician. But what he's basically doing is so like the Marco Rubios of the world would copy the old school standard politicians. So he might try to copy, Ronald Reagan in his mind, things like that, and seem standard and blah, blah, blah. Now the new line of Republican politicians are trying to copy Trump because they think Trump works. They're trying to copy populism. So Ron DeSantis actually does not have much personality at all. And he got famous originally by doing an ad where he was kissing Trump's ass. He even used his baby to compliment Trump. And then he now stands like Trump in a really weirdo way where he has his hands out in front like Trump does, like nobody else does. And he's like, oh, am I looking awkward enough like Trump? And in this case, what he's doing is, it turns out voters love violent populist rhetoric. So let me give them violent populist rhetoric. So they'll think I'm a populist. And if that gets copied over and over and over again as a thing that works in the right wing, which I'm afraid it does, then we'll have violent rhetoric all over the country from normal politicians copying someone like Trump.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. Look, on one hand, it's funny watching these milquetoast politicians try to model themselves after Trump because that's what the base wants. But a bigger problem is that's what the base wants. Yes. It's being reflected. I mean, you mentioned Marco Rubio. It's reflected in what we're seeing with Marco Rubio's approval ratings, how he's performing in elections or in his reelection campaign. And it's because he's considered boring, right? He's considered or so-called rhino because he's not constantly inciting violence. He's not constantly attacking disenfranchised groups of people, which, by the way, he does his fair share of that, but it's not explicit enough for them. And it's scary because the Republican Party just keeps moving further. I don't even know if further to the right is the correct way to describe it. They're moving further in a scary lunatic position. And that is not something that I celebrate.
Yeah, one last thought on this. Look, I think you might have said it in the past, Anna, that if it's DeSantis versus Trump in an open primary, I think DeSantis is gonna get his ass handed to him. Because someone trying to copy Trump versus the real deal, the original is gonna win. I mean, if Trump is knocked out for some reason and doesn't run, okay, then DeSantis has an excellent chance of winning. But in a primary where, here, one of our members is already doing it. Weird Al Dragonovich wrote in, "Rip off Ronnie stealing my hand gestures."
Totally, yeah.
Yep. And look, rip off Ronnie. It's over. It's over.
The other thing is, it's easy to pretend to be as vicious as Trump, or like say the same vicious things that Trump says. But the one other thing that Trump has going for him that I can't imagine Ron DeSantis ever replicating is that, love him or not, hate him or not, Trump is kind of funny. He knows how to entertain and he knows how to mock people in a way that ends up getting laughs. I don't think Ron DeSantis has that in him. I could be wrong, but we're gonna find out.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.